With the release of the brand new Avatar Aang movie alongside the trailer for Avatar The Seven Havens, many fans noticed that there are actually some huge connections between the Aang movie and the Seven Havens that almost nobody noticed. In fact, I would say some of these things are actually setting us up and getting us ready for the Seven Havens, which is coming out in October. So hit that subscribe button, and today we're going to go into every single connection between the Avatar Aang movie and the Seven Havens and how it may connect to what happens in the show. So let's get into it. So to start off, we have the brand new Avatarian language. What is this language? Well, for the last 20 years, every sign and scroll in the Avatar world was written in Chinese characters, but now that has changed. At Comic-Con just a few days ago, Brian Konietzko walked the audience through a brand new writing system called Avatarian, with the words for water, earth, fire, and air spelled out phonetically on the big screen alongside the construction of each of those characters in this new language. Now, you can see the examples of that on screen now, and a lot of people are very upset with moving away from the Chinese characters into some fake language that they just made up and want to transition to. I'm not fully sure on the reasons why they're doing this transition, but that's not the interesting part. We can get into that discussion in another video. But for this video, the interesting part is that this same language is now also being used in Avatar The Seven Havens, as we could see in the trailer and the materials that came along with that trailer. Now, for the Avatar Aang movie, Aang writes a letter in it, and it tells you that this is an everyday living language that everybody in the Avatar universe uses. So to me, this tells us that it's a retcon and the everyday language of Avatar is now Avatarian instead of these Chinese characters. Even the editors on the Avatar wiki are already being forced to restructure the entire language documentation around this new canon script as we go forward. So it's going to be a big transition, but what does it mean for the Seven Havens? Well, Parvi and her long-lost twin are hunting their own origins in a world where history has been buried. A continuous writing system is what makes that search possible, because if the same script runs from Sonam's era through to Republic City era, all the way through to the other side of the Seven Havens Cataclysm, every ruin that Parvi walks into will be legible to her and will tell us so much about the history of the world. So I think they've used the Avatar movie to prepare us for this new language, just to give us a small taste of it, which we can see in the movie, and then get us ready for it to be the main and central language in the Seven Havens, and that will allow a connection all the way back to Sonam's era, because I also think Avatar Sonam was put into the Avatar Aang movie as a bit of a precursor and as a bit of a foreshadowing of what will become and what will happen in the Seven Havens. I think Parvi is going to discover Avatar Sonam, despite the fact that the past Avatar lives were cut off. And there's also a sneakier element to this new script as well. Because we now have this script, we can now use script drift, or seeing how far the language has changed between the time of Republic City and the new Seven Havens, to basically show which settlements are able to keep their records straight and accurate, and which lost their records and are starting fresh. And in a show that's going to have a big storyline about a false story about the Avatar destroying the world, and not knowing who the Avatar actually is, record keeping is extremely important, and so is the language that goes along with it. And that leads us on to the second connection, which is Sonam's voice is already in the Seven Havens trailer. Jeremy Zuckerman is scoring both projects, and he made sure to put the musical cues of Avatar Sonam of the spirit world and of Sonam's voice herself in the actual audio from the Seven Havens trailer. Go back and listen to it, you'll hear the exact same audio cues. And because it's the same composer for both projects, it's pretty clear that this was very intentional. If you listen to the vocal line under the spirit material in the Avatar movie, you can hear Varajashri Venugopal, an Indian vocalist and a flautist that Zuckerman brought in for this project, and her voice is threaded throughout the tracks tied to Avatar Sonam. And the soundtrack listing even makes it explicit, even crediting her on the song called Sonam's Staff, and on the Lion Turtle Islands cue, and on the closing piece titled Sonam's Song. Now, that same texture also appears in the Seven Havens teaser, and Konietzko has confirmed the pipeline himself, mentioning that he and Zuckerman, the composer, are already working with Venugopal on another Avatar project, which of course is obviously the Seven Havens. And she is an Indian composer, and that makes a lot of sense because the Seven Havens is way more Indian inspired and Indian focused rather than the East Asian focus of the original series. So this is all coming together to really show us that there is a through line between the Avatar Aang movie and the Seven Havens. And the fact that these leitmotifs show up during all of the spirit world scenes in the Avatar Aang movie tell us that the spirit world is going to be extremely important in the Seven Havens. And to me, that tells me that Korra's destruction of the world comes as something to do with the spirit portals, or of angering the spirit world in some way, causing these huge storms. And that leads us to another very, very clear connection, which is the crystals. In the back half of the Avatar Aang movie, Team Avatar crosses the Immortal Storm to the Lion Turtle Islands, and when Aang finally connects with Sonam, he does it inside of a crystalline space that the soundtrack labels Sonam's Grotto. Now, the spirit world sequences that follow use the same vocabulary of sharp, refracted formations and glowing internal light. Now, look at the Avatar 7 Havens teaser. Pavi's world is a broken, desolate landscape, and those very same crystal structures sit prominently in the wide shots, which we can see everywhere in the trailer. This is one of the strongest visual matches between the two projects. These crystals share the same faceting, the same light behavior, and the same association with concentrated spiritual energy that the film establishes and that we see in the Seven Havens teaser. So with this, there's a couple possibilities of how this is actually connected to the Seven Havens. The first is that maybe the Seven Havens aren't on the mainland at all. Maybe all of the surviving people of the Avatar world of the 5 nations had to flee to the unknown lands that we see in the Avatar movie, and that is where the Seven Havens are established. Now, this one is very unlikely because only airbenders can really get there, and there aren't too many airbenders still, even after Korra Book 3. But regardless, there's another possibility, and we know because in the movie, the crystal marks the places where the two worlds touch, since Sonam hides her staff inside of one of them and the lion turtles rest among them. So if a wasteland in Pavi's era is covered in that same crystal, the simplest explanation is that is the boundary between the physical and the spiritual. And that could tell us that one of the parts of the cataclysm is that the boundary between that physical and that spiritual didn't just become thin, it actually deposited itself across the planet. So these crystals could come from some type of spirit realm. And that leads us straight to the natural disasters. And the next connection is the purple lightning storms in both the Avatar Aang movie when the temple is falling and in the Seven Havens trailer. So this one is the clearest and cleanest connection that there is. When Targa connects with the staff and corrupted spiritual energy erupts over Republic City, the sky tears open in violent purple lightning. This is the visual signature of the climax, and it's impossible to miss. The Seven Havens teaser renders the cataclysm that broke the world in exactly the same way, as enormous purple storms, and the same color, the same crackling structure, and the same sense of spiritual event happening in physical space above a city with no way to defend itself. Just look at the photos from the movie and look at what we see in the trailer. These storms are pretty much exactly the same. That once again backs up what I was saying earlier, that the source of this cataclysm is the spiritual discontent. The spirit world is mad, really mad. So whatever Korra did, whatever happened to the world, that is really coming back to bite the Avatar world, and that ends up resulting in the destruction of that world. And that really answers the question of why the world believes that Korra is to blame for all of that. And this makes sense because if the cataclysm looked like what we see in the Aang movie with the Avatar scale power tearing the sky apart, people watching from the ground had every reason to blame Korra whether or not she was involved at all, because that type of thing is only triggered by Avatar level events. And then of course we have the one to put the cherry on top, which is the Vatu teaser at the end of the Seven Havens trailer. If you look right at the end of the trailer, you see a red kind of kite, kind of square figure coming up. Everyone thinks that's Vatu, and it very well could be Vatu. And what do we know Vatu can do? Vatu can do what Rava can do, just in the opposite. And what we saw Rava and Vatu do in the spirit fight over Republic City was turn themselves into massive kaiju monsters. One of the worst parts of season 2 for sure, but the fact that that kind of happened again in the Avatar Aang movie tells us that the creators are still going down this path. And that means the red figure at the end of the Seven Havens trailer probably is Vatu. And that means the Dark Avatar cycle has begun. And what that means is the Avatar cycle will go in reverse. So the normal Avatar cycle is of course fire, air, water, earth. And the Dark Avatar cycle would probably go in the opposite way, being earth, water, air, fire. And what do we know? This is an earth series. And that means both of the cycles could now be synced up, obviously going the opposite way. Both start on earth. Of course, Pavi starting on earth because earth is after water of Korra, but the Vatu avatar, the Dark Avatar, starting on earth and going the opposite way. So those are all of the connections I noticed in the Avatar 7 Havens trailer and the Avatar Aang movie. Let me know if you found any that I missed, or if you have any new ideas in the comments, let me know down below. And let me know, did you like the movie or did you hate it? Thanks so much for watching. And if you want to know every piece of lore that is going to be relevant going into the Seven Havens, subscribe now and I'll take you through all the relevant lore in the lead up to Avatar the Seven Havens. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, drop a thank Mr. Roku in the comments down below.